Good afternoon. This is the Elliott Wave daily update for the NASDAQ 100, being recorded on Wednesday, October the 8th at 2:35 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. Um, Interesting day for the NASDAQ, courtesy, pretty much courtesy of what we saw take place in the big stocks in AMD and Nvidia. Tesla had a part in it. Um, Netflix actually had a small part, but still substantial. Meta, Broadcom, Amazon, AMD, big part. AMD had a big part in that, and then AMAT and then Apple as well. So again, our big tech stocks, and more so the two that are directly affected by the OpenAI deal, and that being Advanced Micro Devices and NVIDIA. So what I have done is that, yes, we went above that 1.382 delineator, just that level, which would have considered an irregular B wave as a part of a ongoing minute fourth wave. Well, it did not just overshoot it. It then continued to just really rally pretty hard. The NASDAQ itself, the cash market closed up 296. The futures market closed up 315. So again, very big day. And I think they probably have cleared it already. No, they haven't. So, and even if we look at the volume, 436,000, light volume for a $315 move. So things were flying all over the place and they were being held higher because the sellers were non-existent. It came a point where the sellers just weren't there. You had to have a very specific reason to sell, and that would have been to hedge a position that was again being put on. So again, it was a fairly wild day, light volume. Now the stocks themselves, Nvidia 129 million, AMD 157 million shares. So AMD now trading in Nvidia volume. So if you notice that big switch. So this stock went up $24 on volume. I have to think that much of it was likely, and I know I'm delineating here, but just bear with me. A lot of it could have been just putting it together for what's going to happen on Friday, which is the expiration. And if that's not it, we can always go out to the next one, and you can see we can start on the 230s. When it got to the 230s, it just started to spark. So we have 107, 105,000 of the October 10th, which is Friday, trading or traded today. The volatility almost to 100%. So it makes it juicy for traders that are premium traders. It makes it very juicy for them to trade these, where you can be selling this particular option. I'd say you sell it at 925. You're selling somebody the stock. You're going to give them, you're giving the right to purchase the stock from you at $230 a share, but they're paying you $9.25 to do it. So essentially, it's $239.25, and you can turn around and you can buy it there. And I think when it was trading there, it was less than this. This has gone up substantially again after uh, both the regular close and the secondary close. Market continues to go up. That was during the regular session. That's where it got to. So it's gone up another $3. So this closed at one. So if you got 925 on the bell and then you turn around and bought the stock, you had just sold somebody the option to buy the stock from you at 230, but they pay 239.25, and you turn around and even you pay 236, right? You got a nice chunk of change in your pocket called premium. So again, it becomes very strong for premium traders, even the dealers. The dealers are going to be more than happy to give that because they can hedge in and out of things so quickly because it's all algorithmic, and we see that. You can see it happening, and then you can see the effect that AMD then has on the NASDAQ. I don't want that stock. I'm going to go back to my NASDAQ. So it has a very strong effect on the NASDAQ, and it'll just start to pop and pop and pop and pop and pop. And then it did that. And then, of course, then we get volatilities to start selling. So now we're back into doing the risk on trade, which is just, in my opinion, again, it's just my opinion, is so overcooked. So in other words, there's just so many options, calls being traded, that it is again, we're approaching the October expiration, extremely call heavy. So if we're heavy within the underlying stocks, I imagine that we get heavy in the Qs, in the NQ, in the NDX, in other ETFs. It just are getting heavy duty. So either they're going to hold it up until that Friday expiration, but once it's done, the massive amount of gamma that's just going to be released it's we're going to see. We'll see what happens. Now, back to the daily chart. So what I had said, I'm going to have to go down. Let's start here. What I had talked about is that here we are. This was always a third, but I had placed the minute third wave here, minute this minuet wave A of minute wave 4, and this would have been the B wave. Now, this is where we ended, and I thought, okay, that could be it could have been the minuet wave B, and then we start a C wave. Initially, I thought, okay, we've come down. Maybe in 5, we got this is 2. We should start to come down in a third. That did not materialize. We started to race up pretty much just before the opening, and then during the opening in the first hour, we were heading towards this secondary level. And then we plowed through that initial resistance, which would have kept it at 1.382, and we started to get above 25,275, which was this high right here. Once that happened, we're now breaking above, and then it got substantial. And I said what I would do after that is that I would change the count, would go to the alternate, which would put this in a minuet first wave, as what I thought, of minute wave 5. But when I put the 4 down here, and then I opened it back up, because I wanted to clean out a lot so that I can see what was going on. That being minute wave 4, and this being minuet wave 4, I suddenly looked at that and thought, no, no, not going to happen. That's not going to happen. And then I had and these were still left on from the podcast over the weekend, which was telling us about the right and left tails. And I gave a description of what they are and what they mean. And this would be for a downside move. And so in the NASDAQ, we had a percentage, and I believe a 10% move was close to 36% chance of happening between now and I think the end of October. So, and then a 15% had about a 25% chance of happening. Those remain in place. I will adjust the price because we've moved above that level. I'd worked those prices off of that high at 24,748. So wherever I had marked that third wave, no, it would have been right here. 25,026 is where that's the number I used. And so now I will put back in wherever this all finishes up, and we'll get into that in just a moment. So these are going to change. They likely will move up, but the fact is I was putting them in the color for the minute degree. I felt that minute wave 4 would come down and had a chance of getting to these areas in play to complete that minute wave 4. Well, putting the minute wave 4 there just kind of takes the algorithm that I use and tosses it out the window. And I thought, no, I have too much evidence that tells me that a fourth wave should be coming back into here. And now, coming back up, yes, if we top out, and I'm going to get down out of this, but just let me finish here in terms of I just brought everything down a degree. The actual wave number, so the wave count via numbers, is the same. It's just down a degree. So that extends our minuet degree up a full notch. So where I had placed the minute third, and now I can bring this down and let's put it on that chart. This was previously the minute degree third wave. Now it's the minuet degree third, minuet degree fourth, and we're still in a fifth wave, and it's still a diagonal. So I changed from the letters to the numbers, and in a diagonal, it's still five waves, but they're all threes. So ABC1, ABC2, ABC3, ABC4, and we got an ABC coming up into five. Now, our first marker is, so in other words, here we go, 1 over to 4. So now we're going to look at to what the fib levels are for a fifth wave. The first one is 618, and it's going to sit right there. And let me just kind of pull this down and open it up. Come on, wrong one. And open it up. You see there's 882. 618 is actually even a little bit below. 618 is going to end up down there. Let me just put that back on so we can see it. See that? We've already gone over it this afternoon. So I took it off. Unless we come in tomorrow and they just collapse. That's also an option. So it takes us up to that next level, which is 25,478, 479, 480. And then where wave 5 would be equal to wave 1 is 25,545. Now, let's just take a look. Market was up 300 points today. 25,545 from where we closed is less than 200 points. Could we do it again? We could. All in preparation for Friday's expiration? You bet. Sure, why not? Where's AMD going to go? 240, 245, 250? Options will dictate where this thing goes out on Friday. And then also NVIDIA. NVIDIA's had trouble holding on, had trouble getting above 189, had trouble getting closer to 190. But suddenly, we get these days where NVIDIA's like, nope, they're stepping in, they buy it big. Suddenly it's 190 bid at 192. Somewhere around in there. These things we've seen happen, and they can happen again. And that would, again, give this index an extreme boost to the upside. So still the same deal. It is a fifth wave. It is a diagonal triangle. And so instead of it being part of the minute fifth wave, which would put it in the first wave position, this diagonal is happening in the fifth wave position, which actually is most common. And so we're close to being done. And then again, we put up that minuet wave 5 and that minute wave 3. Now, minute wave 3, this calculation has not changed. Going back out to the daily, there is minute 1 and 2. They are exactly in the same position that they've been since they were created. So that has not changed. So I'm going to bring it back down. So that puts, when I went back around to redo fibs, I realized I just need to add these again. So that's always been up there, 2.618 at 25,521. That's always been there. But we had marked it because at the 1.618, this one was pretty close for the minute. And the going down fit to the start of a fourth wave. And this being irregular kept it alive really all the way up to here, all the way up to yesterday. And remember from yesterday's update, what I was talking about was that tomorrow's going to tell the tale, folks. Tomorrow we will know. We have a very high chance of knowing which count or which side is in play. Now, it is the one which has additional upside is in play, but it's not a minuet wave 1. It is a minuet wave 5 to complete that minute third wave. So that's the big difference. And then that keeps us in line with what the algorithms are saying. Not that I don't want to go with or without the algorithms, but they've been pretty consistent each time I've run them over the last couple of months that they continue to talk about a low in October and a surge back up from November into December and then mid-December declining into the end of the year. They've said that for a while. But the surge up, so either we're getting it right now, or we still got that wave 4 to go, and we'll finish it up. once we get 4 in, and then we got 5 to go. And I think that also, we on the 14th, we begin third quarter earnings reports. I think it could be rocky. I think it could be up, it could be down, it could be all over the place. So I think our volatility remains high. But the thing is, it's like what we're seeing is that this risk on trading, that really is just keeping the NASDAQ to the higher levels, just does not catch any downdrifts. And that kind of was what happened pretty much from our opening. We had, I think, two decent right here. We go down to the 15-minute chart. We had some there. There was one, there was kind of another, there was kind of a third, but you can see how they got smaller and smaller. And look at the trajectory. That's parabolic. On a 15-minute chart, that's parabolic. That's just like grabbing at algorithms that absolutely had to fill. And they did. But thin volume. This is new all-time highs. Why would I sell it up here? Unless I'm a day trader and I can turn around and just get out of it or buy it for, $2 less. So, but if you're a position trader, you better have a reason why you want to sell up here in a market that's not giving any signs that it's going to give up the ghost right now. So again, you had to have a reason, and a reason would be that you're hedging an existing position, either that you've just entered or that you're just hedging because of, delta movement. Okay, so all of that being said, this all, to me, what I thought was a bunch of threes, it still could be, and it could be wave one, wave two, wave three. I doubt we're going to get a strong four. We'll see what happens overnight, because I think tomorrow we're going to walk in and we're going to continue to go up. I mean, we just take a look. AMD is knocking on 240's door. That's going to be up $5 from where it closed at 4 p.m. Eastern. So in 8 minutes, it's going to reopen. The index is going to reopen. And they'll stop trading this stock for, I think, an hour, and they think maybe more. I'm not sure exactly when our equity markets close and then reopen in the European session. So, but it's like wild timing. So back to this hourly chart. So this is what I'm looking at. And this all, it does really match out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just a very small degree. Now, does that kind of not sit well with me? Not as much as this being minute wave 4. That really, I'm like, boy, it just doesn't fit. It just doesn't fit. It just doesn't fit. Not when I was considering if this was new regular that we're going to come down. Even if it was just normal, it missed the boat by a mile. And let me explain why. Here's 1 and 2. I had marked this as minute wave 3. It was already very large. To come in here was miles away from 0.236 on a retracement. So I kept thinking, okay, I got to get it to where these left tails are literally going to kick in, and we got to get into that move. And obviously, we weren't getting any closer to getting into that move in terms of having a C wave to draw the market lower. It just wasn't happening. Could have, but what stepped in the way? Well, OpenAI coming out and saying, "Yeah, I just cut a deal with AMD. Really great. We're going to put all this money into that company. We're going to get chips. We're going to do this. We're going to do that." Bam! The stock was up over $50 overnight. We just walked in and there it was. Well, that kind of kicked that theory right out the door. I kept it alive, and then I gave you all the breakpoints, and I told you I'm keeping it alive until it does this, and then it did it. So we're moving on, and I know some people probably aren't going to like it, but I apologize. I'm not in charge of AMD or when the news comes out. If I am, I would be doing it a lot differently. So let's just go from where we are. Moved it down a degree. So this is minuet 3, minuet 4. We're in minuet wave 5, which indeed is a triangle. It's not a triangle. It's a diagonal. And all the waves, 1 through 3 and 5, are all three-wave sequences. So we have wave one, wave two, wave three, wave four, and we're in wave five. Our measurements are 882 comes in at 25,478. 100% comes in at 25,523. And actually the same as this. This comes in at 25,523, and this comes in at 25,545. So I'm going to say 25 to 25,545 is our key area. Other side of that, I think if we should, if this stops it here, well, then the minuet also finishes up at that level. So I'm going to give it that a little bit extra because I think it does get up here. And it's actually not that far from where we are. And if this thing is still clicking like it is, up another $4, if it goes about $5, I think we're there. So that is the name of all that tune. So again, once we're done with the new labeling for minute wave 3, then I'm still going to be expecting that drop. And then our left tails are going to come into play. Now, let's not forget, we also have right tails. Let me see if I can find those. There they are. Here we have the right tails, and those are for upside. Again, a 10% and a 15% move. And those also had a high probability of occurring. And I thought these would come first, and then these kick in. So you can see, I think both sides are going to be in play before all is said and done as we get ready to finish that primary third wave way up there. So everything remains. It's just how we're going to get there. It's been a wild ride so far. It's not been easy, I tell you. In fact, I had one member, and God bless you, who I can't remember what your acronym was, but said, yeah, can get rid of this crazy chop. And I answered, yes. Yes, I am in favor of getting away from that crazy chop, and it didn't happen. So yes, we're still going to hope for that. Yep, those were strong. And I'm thinking once we can get done and we go into a corrective move, that's not going to be like that's going to be more because it has all this weight now to pull it down, can be more directional and hopefully a zigzag, right? A wave 4 zigzag, not a wave 4 irregular. Just please make it a zigzag. These are my orders. I'm putting it up to the gods of the market. Please give us a zigzag for that wave 4. That's 5, 3, 5, done. And get it down into, I will redo those levels, by the way. Got to go back out to the daily. I will redo these left tails because I was basing them on where my minute wave 3 I felt topped out. So now I got to wait for it to actually top out, and I'll redo these levels. Both sides. Both sides. So the right tails and the left tails I'll redo because they're going to become important as we go into year end. All right, so what we have as well on our gamma levels, folks, is that so much, nope, that's not the one I wanted. Sorry about that. Our gamma levels, I got to get over here. Okay. Became important today as well. And I'll tell you, in the Qs, the reason they became important is because what did we do? We went up and we got above large gamma 2, we got above zero gamma, we got above 608, we got above 609, which there were subsequent gamma levels there, just not big enough to come into the system that I use. But 610, large gamma 3, and the call wall. And when it broke that, the market jumped and it stayed higher and just kept moving higher. So the Qs went out at 611. So it closed above, staying above, and I don't have anything else except a combo at 614. So that would be next, but I think we'll get revised levels and we'll have those tomorrow. In the NASDAQ, the NQ got buried, but I had 25,193 was large gamma 3. And in the NDX, it was 25,000. That got broken along with the NQ, large gamma 3, we jumped. We kicked up the whole process. It just jumped. Okay, so now we're just opening and we're up another 17, 16, 17, $18. Also today, in case you weren't paying attention, if you didn't notice, gold solidly above 4,000, silver touching 49, platinum, oh my, trading very close, if not touching 1,700. So the precious metals are going wild. The treasury markets are kind of like trying to understand and go like, well, what we should be doing. Should we be fearful here? Should we be, flight to safety? It's like, no, it's all going to gold. All right, that's going to be it for here because otherwise I'll talk too long. Again, thank you for sticking with me. Thank you for hopefully understanding. If you have a question, please ask. If you have a comment about, oh, Elliott doesn't work, and you have no idea what you're talking about, please don't. I'm going to erase it, and I'll probably just, block you from the site. So please, we can have a conversation, or you can just pass through and leave something silly, and then I'm going to take it down. All right, next update will be tomorrow morning.